Hi, everybody. So first, um, this is going to be the second edition that I filmed today. First one, sound didn't work, so I'm going to try and cover everything that I originally covered, and hopefully I won't miss any points. But welcome to Detransition Story Hour Part Two. First off, I just gotta say, twinsies! It's peep time. I'm so all right. Now I got that out of the way. Um, yeah, the transition. Where did I leave off? Well, so I'd been on tea for a while, and originally I was pretty much going upwards with my symptoms. Feeling good, high metabolism, high energy. I would crash usually close to when I would have to do my shot again, but generally once I would do my shot again, I would be right back up on top. That started to change, and I started to have some negative side effects that are generally believed to be pretty common with people with females who take testosterone over time, where once your levels are once your body adjusts to those levels, you start to feel maybe a little bit more tired, definitely less energy. Your metabolism may change a little bit. Your mood may change a little bit too. So that's definitely something that I was experiencing a lot of after a while. Low energy, tired a lot. I got to a point with my metabolism where I'd previously had a really high metabolism and was eating pretty normally, and like not gaining any weight, often losing weight. And then I started to not eat, and my appetite kind of changed. So I didn't really have much of an appetite anymore. So I didn't eat very much. Part of that too was psychological. I was having depression, and I have a history of eating disorders. So I kind of in my depression and kind of poor mental health state, I think some of those habits kind of came back a little bit. It wasn't nearly as severe as it was when I was in the middle of it when I was younger, but I definitely use food as a way of controlling my surroundings. And during this period, I was really starting to feel overwhelmed because not only was testosterone not helping me feel better about being a woman or about being female in the way that I had kind of hoped, where I had hoped that I would change my body to be more comfortable, but also I was becoming more and more uncomfortable with the changes that were happening. Um, and that became more and more problematic over time. So, one thing I do want to make sure I note is the permanent changes. Now, I know this is something that many detransitioners have already gone over. Many transgender people in general will tell you about this, but I think it's just worth noting again. So, some things that change for female people who take testosterone: facial hair. Um, Facial hair is permanent. When you go off of hormone therapy, you can basically you stop the process of continuing, so you're not going to necessarily see more production of facial hair, but the facial hair that has developed isn't going to go away. Um, there are certain treatments that you can do to minimize the follicle, and sometimes you can. Sometimes it works where it will destroy the root of the follicle, so that basically will make the hair go away. But that's a really lengthy process. It's very expensive. Um, but in general, without further treatment, like just purely just going off of hormone therapy, facial hair is a permanent thing. Your voice will change permanently. Again, you can kind of supplement that change later on if you want to, by doing vocal training. You can also linguistically change the way that you speak. A lot of times, um, women are socially developed to speak a little differently than men. So you can implement those habits if you choose to, or if you already do naturally. That might help if that's something you're looking to do. Also, balding. If you lose hair while you're on hormone therapy, that is a permanent loss. Again, you can stop that loss somewhat, at least slow it down by going off of hormones. But that loss isn't going to be, you're not going to see regrowth. And I'm going to show you something. This is something I was really self conscious about for a long time. Um, but my hairline, you'll see I've got a little bit of a widow's peak right here. I've got a giant forehead. I've got a 5 head. Um, I've got a little bit of a widow's peak here, but it's more over here. This was not always like this. This is not my natural hairline from before testosterone. So my hairline probably came up to like right about there, which doesn't seem like much of a difference. But when you look at the shape and the way that my hair falls and stuff, it kind of stands out a little, I think. Again, I'm just kind of self conscious about it. Um, Also, I ended up, you can't tell because my hair is dark in the camera, um, but I also lost a lot of hair around here. Um, and my hair is just significantly thinner. So that's fun. Yeah, permanent changes. I also ended up getting a lot of more body hair growth, lots of like, dark coarse hair versus um, before testosterone having more light, thin hairs. Um, and these are all things that like you may or may not be prepared for when you first start hormone therapy. I was told about it to some degree. My doctor at the time told me like, hey, you might experience a little bit of hair loss if it's in your genetics. You are probably going to grow facial hair, which is usually something that is desired, and your voice is going to change. Um, but these were changes I, for whatever reason, I thought I was ready for them, but I was not ready for them. Um, my, as I've said in my previous video, my voice started changing pretty early on, and there's very little reference anymore. I don't have a lot of video or anything of my voice before, but it actually was like dramatically different. Um, and yeah, the facial hair thing bothered me partly because also I have really sensitive skin, and I didn't take that into account. So my skin just like I mean, you can tell I can still break out like crazy. Um, but especially when I was consistently taking hormones, I was just always broken out and always having like ingrown hairs. It was nasty, nasty stuff. I have since detransitioning started laser hair removal. And that's an option that I think should be left up to the individual. There are some women out there who may or may not have been on testosterone. Maybe they have other conditions, but who have facial hair and they totally rock it. And I love that. That's awesome. Women can absolutely have facial hair in terms of genetic women can grow facial hair. It's a thing. Um, but that being said, given that this was like a change for me in my adult life that I wasn't really expecting, or rather, I wasn't prepared for as much as I thought, that's something that I've chosen to treat. It also kind of helps me adjust in my professional life. So I can present a little bit more feminine. It's just something that I'm more comfortable with. But it is really expensive, and I don't know that it's necessarily worth it for every person. So if you're detransitioning or considering detransitioning, that's something to take into account, that facial hair is going to be permanent, and um, you may or may not choose to deal with that. Um, Other permanent changes, though, that are not often addressed are changes to your thyroid. Oftentimes, your thyroid works in conjunction with hormone production. So, if you've changed your hormones and you've been on hormone therapy for a long time, you could have caused some damage to that, especially if you make a dramatic change back. Um, I can't go into more specifics than that because I'm not a doctor and I'm not as heavily educated in that. But that's my understanding, is that your thyroid can be pretty damaged from that. So that's always something that I think should be talked about. Also, your heart, you can experience some heart damage. There's a lot more stress on your heart when you are on testosterone. You're at a higher risk of stroke and heart failure, and I believe heart disease as well. Um, you also are putting a strain on your organs, so your kidneys, your liver, um, and I'm sure there's other things that could possibly be tied to this as well that just haven't been covered. I keep saying it, but we need more research. We need more testing. We need more studies done. This is not something that should be taken as lightly as it is. And I'm sorry if that seems insulting, but I do think that in the medical community that this therapy is not regarded with the seriousness that it should be. So these permanent changes were things that um, were happening to me. The outward physical changes happened to me pretty quickly, but I wasn't anticipating the other physical changes. So um, I had been on testosterone for, I think, about 3.5 years, I want to say, maybe 4 years. And I started to develop some organ issues. I uh, well, let me back up. So I was experiencing a lot of depression and that kind of low side of the spectrum with the testosterone high, is what I call it. So I was having the crash. And I went to my doctor about it, and I'd already been on some antidepressants and stuff, and that wasn't really helping with the new severity of my depression. So she suggested that, given my other symptoms of energy and appetite, that I go up in my dose on tea. Um, Now, I was already on a fairly high dose. I'd gone down from my original dose at the beginning. So basically, to give you an idea, at the beginning, I started off on a regular dose for a few weeks, but then my doctor put me at about 3 times the amount that I should have been on. Um, and I was on that dosage for about 2 years, and then I moved and got a new physician. My new physician then kind of dropped me down a little bit um, per my request. I felt like I was on too high of a dose, and she dropped me down. But then I started having these symptoms, and she suggested I go back up again. And so that's what I did, was I went back up, but not to quite the height that I was at when I first started seeing her, where I was at that 3 times amount. Um, and again, I apologize. I wish I could give you like exact measurements of my dosage. It really hasn't been that long ago for me, but I have some poor memory. I have memory issues, so there's some things that I just can't recall, and I don't really keep a record of my testosterone use. So I'm sorry, I don't have that information, but in any case, so I got bumped up on a higher dose of testosterone, and I'm still doing the injectable. I had tried by this time. I tried the gel intermittently, and it just really wasn't that great. It I didn't feel the strong effects that I've really had become accustomed to. So I went back to the shot. And I also was kind of, I felt, this is so stupid, but I felt um, like more serious taking the shot. I don't know how to explain it, but it felt like I was like really making more of a difference by taking the shot versus putting a gel on. Um, like, ooh, I'm hardcore because I can give myself this shot of testosterone. I can't. I wish I could like go back and shake myself sometimes. Like, you're ridiculous. Um, but anyway, sorry, it's wine time for me. So after she increased my dosage, I started having some pretty serious symptoms. This is going to get graphic, so if you really don't have a stomach for basic medical graphic talk, I would suggest skipping ahead maybe about 5 minutes and it should be done by then. So, um, after I increased my dosage, I started urinating blood and having a real sick feeling a lot of the time. My appetite, as I said, had been different already, but now I was feeling nauseous a lot of the time. I also felt dizzy very frequently to a point where if I got up from sitting down, no matter what time of the day, no matter if I'd just eaten, no matter if I'd been drinking water, sometimes I would black out a little bit and feel like I was going to pass out. Um, and then I went to my doctor about this, and she thought maybe it was a UTI. So she gave me treatment for UTI, but that treatment didn't make any change. And it was around after she gave me that treatment that I started developing jaundice. Jaundice is what happens when your liver starts to fail. It's something chemical. I'm sorry, I can't go into more detail, but essentially, my arms and my legs had started to turn yellow. The whites of my eyes were yellow, and I also just kind of like looked very gaunt. My cheeks were all sunken in, and I looked like death. I looked like zombie Lisa Simpson. It was not a good look for me. Not a good look for anybody. So I developed jaundice. I went into my doctor, kind of freaked out, and I told her, like, this is brand new. What's going on? Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. She said, oh, well, like, I think you need to cut back on the caffeine. I think you're drinking too much caffeine. And I was drinking probably a little bit more caffeine than I should have been, maybe a pot of coffee a day. Definitely, like, I've always been a coffee snob, so I drink tons of coffee. Um, and like, I can always drink more water. But in any case, I took her recommendation and I stopped drinking caffeine and I stopped drinking alcohol just as a security measure, which I hadn't really been drinking a lot of around this time anyway. So I stopped just in case. I started drinking water. I was taking liver supplements to like boost my liver health. I started taking a lot more vitamins and things like that. But I wasn't really noticing much of a difference. I went back to my doctor again. She, I don't remember her doing any tests. Now, that's not to say that she didn't do any, I just don't remember. So if she did them, it wasn't notable to me. And I don't recall any results of anything one way or the other. She suggested basically just wait it out. She didn't refer me to anybody. I wasn't seeing an endocrinologist at the time. I remember actually shortly into when I first started seeing her, I asked her for a referral to an endocrinologist and she refused. Um, I don't know why. I don't know why you would refuse a referral to a specialist for somebody on a very serious medication, but she did. Um, it's just I gotta say, like, if you are currently or soon to be on hormone therapy, please, for the love of God, get an endocrinologist, get specialists involved because it's going to cost you more money and it's going to cost you time. But that's kind of the path that you've chosen is that if you want to come out of this in the healthiest way that you can, you need to see these people because they understand a lot more than family practitioners do and your general practitioner. Your general practitioner should definitely be in on it, and you need to keep them updated and they can help you with some things, but you need the help of people who understand how hormones work in the body naturally to help you with this new process. It's not something that one person alone can do. um, no matter how good of a doctor you have, you need that extra help. So I did not have that. And my doctor, again, she kind of just like shrugged off my jaundice and other health issues. So I realized, like, okay, other than the vitamins that I started taking because of this, and other than this antidepressant that I've been on for ages, um, I'm not taking anything else. So what could this be? Um, I decided as a whim to cut my testosterone down myself. My doctor, I asked her if I should go down, and she said, like, you can go down if you want, but it's not going to really change anything. So I decided to go down on my own and change the measurements when I was giving myself the shot. Um, and it eventually, the jaundice went away. Now, that's not to say that perhaps there were other factors. I am not a doctor, so I don't know. Again, I don't recall any real testing being done. Um, and even if there had been testing, I wasn't seeing a specialist at the time. So there wasn't a lot being monitored. So it's possible that this was not simply related to testosterone. However, the fact that I was on a higher dosage right before this happened, and then when I went on a lower dosage, um, that led to my symptoms decreasing severely. I do feel there's a connection there. Also, given the fact that like your liver and your kidneys help process all of this stuff. So, anyway, that's my conclusion on that. I, feel free to disagree, but without seeing a doctor and without having the previous testing done and stuff, I can't really point out any other reason. So, that's something that I think should be noted is like, even if my issues were not directly tied to testosterone for some reason, um, we don't know, right? Like, we don't have a lot of long term studies done on hormone replacement therapy. So, how am I to know what is actually happening inside of my body when I take this drug? Um, I feel like it's incredibly irresponsible of the medical community to not to be advertising and promoting this medication without offering the same um, studies, the same, or rather, the same support for studies, and without putting in the work to make sure that it's healthy and safe. I don't think that something this under tested should be available to the public, and I know that's a controversial opinion, but it's mine to make. Um, and So I cut down on my testosterone. That seemed to help my symptoms. Um, at the time, I was pretty devastated because for a long time, I'd been led to believe, not just by medical professionals, but by the community I was involved in, that this medication was fixing me and helping me be more myself. Like I could be more of a genuine person if I fix my body to match, um, which now I feel is really insulting. Um, that you need medical intervention to be yourself. Some people do because it's literally saving their life, but then there's other components in this regard, such as mental health. Um, so, sorry, that was more of a chug. I don't know why. That's a good point. So, yeah, I came to the conclusion that I was seeing results with cutting back on testosterone, and that maybe I should really consider going down. I was really scared about this because of the kind of crashes that I've been having. I was worried that this was going to be um, such a really devastating crash that I'd feel really sick and have to deal with really bad symptoms for a long time. But I also didn't really have anything to reference. I, at the time, didn't really know anything about detransitioning. So I didn't know anyone involved in that to ask, what is the physical process like going off of hormone therapy? Um, and so I kind of had to just guess based on what my experiences were like, either like skipping a dose of testosterone, what that felt like, or similar things. So I was really scared, and my doctor wasn't really helpful at all. She was just kind of like, "Yeah, if you want to go down on your dose, do it." And I was like, "Okay, how?" Um, she didn't really offer much support, and around this same time, I cut my dose to half on my own, um, and made her aware about it. And she didn't really guide me through anything else regarding that. She just kind of like let me do my own thing, which um, again I think is a little irresponsible. Like I understand wanting people to have autonomy, especially if they're grown ass adults, like being able to have say in their own medical health, but at the same time, regarding this prescription, it's a very dangerous drug, and I think people need more guidance. And there's a way you can offer that without taking away their autonomy as a patient. Um, I at this point, I ended up being in an unstable place again financially, and in terms of my health insurance. Um, I've experienced a lot of insecurity with health insurance, so my healthcare has not been as fluid and as high priority as I would like it to be. I'm in a better place now, fortunately, but yeah, it's been kind of like up and down, and just crazy. So at this point, I lost my health insurance, and it was going to be a while before I could go on state health insurance. Complicated, but I basically was like free falling at this point, and realized, okay, well, I'm gonna have to go off of my testosterone anyway. Maybe this is just me going off of testosterone. Maybe this is where I need to stop. Um, and I really, really don't recommend anybody who's considering detransitioning do that cut and dry kind of thing. Really, like, again, like, please seek out an endocrinologist, seek out specialists to help you with the process, um, and do it in steps. Like, I kind of jumped the gun. I went from like high dose to regular dose, essentially, to nothing. Um, I would not recommend that whatsoever. You need more steps. You need to be um, gradually going down. And I think that gel and the patch for testosterone are great ways. I don't know the equivalent in terms of estrogen. So I'm sorry. Most of my information is going to be very biased towards the female experience with dealing with hormone therapy. But that's just because that's my only real experience. So I do apologize. There's some great people out there who are detransitioned men who had previously been on estrogen, and they have some amazing information. If you'd like to get in touch with them, please let me know, and I'll connect you. Um, But as for my information, it's going to be mostly in regards to females who've been on testosterone. Um, anyway, yeah, I don't think anyone should just cut cut themselves off of hormones in general, because that kind of it messes with your system, and it's a dramatic change, and your body might go into shock because of that. You might have some related issues with that, versus if you gradually go down, you might be able to take care of your body a little bit easier. Um, so that being said, I didn't do that. I just went off of tea, um, and it was terrible. I'm really advertising this good, huh? It sucked. Um, for me, going off of testosterone meant I was nauseous a lot. I was extremely emotional, which isn't to say that was all due to the hormone changes, because I just had a lot of emotions around all of this. But I do think some of it was due to hormone changes too. Um, my metabolism changed, my energy level changed drastically. I don't know if I've ever felt so tired in my life. Yeah, it was hard. I felt kind of like I was going through withdrawals, to be honest. And it was, it felt like forever, but it was only for a few months. Um, after about 3 months, things started to regulate a little bit for me. I finally got my menstrual cycle back, and I started to um, have a little bit more energy and feel a little bit more steady. Um, I, again, looking back, I wish I had the chance to put in more care for my body at the time, because I didn't um, really seek out medical attention after the fact to kind of check my levels and get myself evaluated. And at this point, it's I've been evaluated since then for other reasons, um, but it's kind of like a moot point at this time, because like I've been off of testosterone for over 2 years now, so I feel like I'm pretty regulated. Um, so that was my experience on testosterone physically. I'm gonna make more videos in the future and go more in depth in sort of the social experiences that I had. But I really wanted to preface any more of my storytelling with kind of a medical history, because for me, um, the medical side is a huge priority to me. Um, I know some people have other arguments, and I respect that. But for me, the main thing is I feel like this is just such an unhealthy path. And I know that some people are at a point where they feel like they don't have any other choice, and that's a really difficult place to be. But I just feel like the medical industry is peddling the, the hormone replacement therapy and the surgeries in a way that's dangerous and irresponsible. Um, and I want to see people taken care of. I want to see people, I don't want to see people go through what I went through. Um, I don't want there to be more detransition people, because I don't want, in terms of like, I don't want there to be more production of people going on this path of medicalization only to come out of it with damaged bodies and not feeling better. Because, I already felt like shit before I started all of this medicalization. I didn't need to bring my body up to speed with how my mind felt in terms of my depression and my health. I was mentally unwell, and then I became physically unwell. Um, and not everyone who goes on hormone therapy or has surgery is going to come out of it physically impaired, or as damaged or sick or what have you. I recognize that maybe I am an exception, um, but just the fact that there is that risk, I think, needs to be addressed a lot more. Um, and I think something so untested being produced so rapidly and um, advertised the way that it is, it's unsafe. I think we need to take it a lot more seriously than it's being taken. Um, yeah, the medicalization side is a much bigger deal to me than even when we get into, transgender social ideology and the community, um, or mental health aspects and stuff like that. Really, the physical health and well being of people is what takes top priority for me, because I think, um, yeah, I've just had like such a shit time with my experience that I don't want to see anybody else going through that and dealing with that. Um, if you're watching this and you're on hormone therapy and you're happy, more power to you, but please take care of yourself. Please get specialists involved. Please get tested regularly for your levels and um, just consider all the factors. I don't think anyone should be told that they need to be a permanent patient in order to be happy, because I don't think that's true. I don't think we all need to be on medication forever in order to learn tools and devices that we can use to cope with our issues. And maybe that makes me sound like a condescending asshole, but I have my perspective for a reason. You have yours for your reasons. And let's talk. If you disagree or you agree, that's fair. But we need to have those conversations instead of coming at each other. Um, people's health is at risk. This isn't just about transphobes hating people because they're different, or trans people attacking women because they hate women. It's about that, but it's also not about that. There's other factors here that we need to address together. We need to talk about because it affects everybody. So that's my spiel. I hope y'all are having a good Easter, or whatever celebrations you're taking part in. Maybe it's just a candy day today. For me, it's just eat lots of marshmallow peeps and drink some wine day. I hope y'all are surviving quarantine and, self isolating and taking care of yourselves and your families, and keep in spirit, because I know, like, being isolated, it's rough, especially when you've got other demons that you're kind of used to being able to escape from, even for a small period of the day. When your whole life changes and you're stuck with those demons, it can be really hard. So I hope you're taking care of yourself. And yeah, catch you later.